EU internal combustion engine ban in trouble, US Postal Service buy etransits, Range Rover insurance in London, Wrightbus hydrogen, Chinese EV sales, F1 is back for 2023, lithium find in the US, AM radio to stay, LKQ buy Uniselect, and Mercedes-Benz build a battery recycling plant in Germany. Hello, my name is Paul Callan and welcome to this week's MotorZen News. The EU ban on internal combustion engines for 2035 looks like it might be coming under a bit of pressure, as in that Germany has now come out and said that it wants an exemption for internal combustion engines running on e-fuel. And we know how powerful the German motor industry is and the German lobby is. Well, the German Minister of Transport has come out and is fighting very strongly for this in Europe. Also, Italy have already said that they only want a 90% ban by 2035, and Poland and Hungary are also opposed to the ban. So crack starting to be seen here maybe is that this ban is not as solid as we might have thought. So again, not quite clear exactly how this is going to play out. Again, on the opposite side, in America, the US Postal Service is going to buy this year 9,250 e-transits. They're going to install 14,000 charge points at 75 post offices across America. It's a $9.6 billion spend on electric vehicles. So the American Postal Service is very clear as to how they're going to move around into the future. Range Rovers. If you own a Range Rover in London, you'll struggle to get insurance for it because they're getting stolen so much. It's absolutely out of control. The volumes of Range Rovers are getting stolen to the point that some insurers are refusing to insure them. And if you do get a quote, they say the quote could be somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 for a year, because this theft has just taken over. Seems to be that they're very popular in abroad, so they reckon they've been stolen to order to be shipped across Africa and into Europe. The response from Jaguar Land Rover to the customers has been to use your app. They've got an app, they call it the Guardian mode, which tells you if someone has moved or entered the vehicle. Well, I think if you're in London and someone has moved or entered your vehicle, I don't think you're going to go down and tackle them. So not a very effective response from Jaguar Land Rover on that one. Wrightbus in Ballymena in Northern Ireland are going to spend £3 million on a hydrogen production facility. They're already putting in their planning permission to hope to have the plant up and running for next year. And again, if you keep in mind, this company is now owned by the JCB company owners. Joe Banford is the chairman of JCB, the chairman of Wrightbus, was bought out in 2019. So the philosophy of hydrogen is very strong in these companies. Okay, what they're saying in Ballymena is it's the hydrogen for their buses, because Wrightbus were the first company in the world to produce a double-decker hydrogen bus in 2020. So they are really getting behind the hydrogen idea. They're going to have the ability to produce hydrogen to fuel the vehicles that they're manufacturing. And we also know that JCB has been a very strong advocate of hydrogen in its plant. They're saying that this is the way to go. They've already built and run hydrogen powered engines in their machinery. So again, the idea of hydrogen becoming more popular is certainly again becoming more apparent here, and we're going to have hydrogen produced on the island of Ireland. While everybody in business and all sorts of business have abandoned Russia, China has taken a different view, and China is flooding the Russian market. Before the end of next year, there will be 100 Chinese brands will have entered the Russian market. There'll be 500 new dealers in China by the end of the year, making up a total of 1,000 Chinese dealers. A third of the Russian market will be dealers that are Chinese. On the other hand, if you look at this, Turkey has put a 40% tariff on Chinese EV cars entering their market. So this is a really radical move. Turkey have invested very, very heavily on their own vehicle. The vehicle is called a TOG, an electric SUV, and they're now setting out to protect that vehicle because they've invested very heavily, and they're seeing the onslaught of the Chinese product, and they're saying, right, we're going to put a stop to this, we're putting a 40% tariff on it. But also the Transit is built in Turkey as well, so they want Transit to become popular and successful in order for the plant that produces them in Turkey to become popular and successful. But also this is and I've been predicting this for a while, that the onslaught of the Chinese vehicles is going to take over the market. But there's a suggestion that other European countries may follow, or Europe as a whole may follow, to introduce a tariff. The concern is that if there is going to be job losses as a result of the whole car industry going towards EV, but in Europe the hope is that we can retain a lot of those jobs and convert people over to working on the EV vehicles. But the concern is, if the market is dominated by Chinese vehicles, if they get such a strong foothold in the European market with EVs, maybe the European companies may not survive. So this is the start now of a conversation that I think is going to end up with, yes, Europe imposing tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, because the product appears to be very, very good, and the capacity to produce them in volume and penetrate the market is there. So I think the only thing that will stop them is tariffs. Formula One is back. By the time you see this, the Bahrain first round of the season will have taken place in Bahrain. Interesting comment or interesting press release by Stefan Domenicali, the CEO of F1, this week, where he said that F1 will never go electric. They've been hybrid for 10 years now. They're going to have completely updated systems in 2026. They reckon the hybrid system will triple the power, and they're going to run the internal combustion engines on synthetic fuel from 2026 on. I reckon you're going to have 550 brake horsepower from internal combustion engine and 450 from the electric. Interesting to think that he's been so adamant that with all the changes occurring, they're saying no, we're always going to run with internal combustion engines. Interesting side note to this is that Bernie Ecclestone sold the rights for F1 to a company called Liberty in 2016. They've grown F1's audience with things like Drive to Survive, and also with bringing racing very successfully to America. So they've grown the audience immensely. And a figure that I heard the other day was that they gave something in the region of $5 billion for F1 in 2016 to Bernie Ecclestone. They reckon it's worth $17 billion now, so that's a nice return on your investment. And another interesting one is Eddie Jordan and David Coulthard have just launched a podcast, and I listened to it. Good dynamic between the two guys, good crack. And an interesting story on this one is where Eddie Jordan tells a story about how he was reprimanded by BBC television when he was doing the grid walk for BBC a couple of years ago, because while he was on the grid walk he met Michael Fassbender, and Michael Fassbender was born and reared in Kerry in spite of the name, and he speaks Irish, and so does Eddie, and the two guys spoke in Irish, and the BBC guys were not happy. They rapped Eddie across the knuckles for speaking. So he tells that story in the podcast, and a good podcast. The name of the podcast is Formula for Success, so if you look it up you'll be able to tune into that one. In the US, they've just found the largest lithium deposit to date. They found this deposit has been found in Nevada. They reckon it's 15.8 million tons. So again, constant concern and constant people saying electric's not going to work because you can't get enough raw materials. But it looks to be that it's that the organisations are going out and they're looking for materials and they're managing to find materials. So again, the concerns are becoming less and less. And also we're going to have another story later on which is about Mercedes, and they're going to be able to recycle 76% of batteries. So at some point we're not going to need any more raw material, because we're going to have this circular economy where we're recycling and reusing, and we're going to talk about that in another one or two stories. Interesting one here. Federal Emergency Agency in America have come out and said they want AM radios to stay in cars. Wow, I mean, AM radios, who would use it? Who would have it? Some manufacturers have started to take out AM radios, but what they're saying is, in the event of a natural disaster, when all other communication systems would or could go down, the most reliable source of getting information to people will be an AM radio. So that crackly sound, that crackly interference type sound maybe isn't going to be going away at all. LKQ have just acquired a company in Canada called Uniselect. Uniselect is a company that was established in 1968. It is primarily involved with refinishing and industrial coatings in North America. But when I heard this story, I thought, wow, this is huge. Huge for the reason that LKQ own Euro Car Parts, and in the UK market, Euro Car Parts have 330 stores, 330 motor factors. Well, the other big competitor to those stores in the UK is German, Swedish, French, GSF, who were owned by Uniselect. And I'm saying, wow, does this mean now that there's virtually no competition in the UK market when you see Euro Car Parts LKQ take over Uniselect, which owns GSF? Well, what they've said, and immediately they're coming out and saying it is that due to regulatory measures, they will be divesting GSF. So what they're kind of saying is they know that the authorities in the UK are going to come down on that this is anti-competitive. So they're already putting their hands up and say, look, we're after buying Uniselect. Uniselect owns GSF. GSF has 180 branches, but we're not going to touch it. We're not going to do anything with it. We're going to sell it. We're going to put it back out there for sale because they know that the authorities are going to come down. And when I heard this story, oh wow, this company owns everything now. But no, competition authority is going to come down on them, and they know that, so they're already saying, look, we're going to sell it. This is the story of Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz are in the process of setting up a new factory in Germany to recycle used or second-hand batteries from EV vehicles. What they're quoting on this is that this facility will be able to recycle 96% of EV batteries, which is really the circular economy. What they're saying is that eventually we won't have to use any new materials. We won't have to use any more raw materials, that we'll be able to continually recycle. They reckon that this site can process 2,500 tons of recycled battery material per year, and they reckon that equals 50,000 new batteries. So when this gets up and running, in theory, again, this is the argument that we hear, that electric vehicles are also very hard on natural resources. Well, if this whole cycle, this circular economy gets up and running, we won't be hard on materials. Yes, we'll have an initial ramp up of the required materials, but after a period of time, we shouldn't need any more materials. That's it for this week. Again, thanks for tuning in. We're not getting massive numbers, but we're getting great comments. We're getting lots of good feedback from people in the trade. We're not looking to make big numbers. We're not looking to get thousands and thousands. I don't think we ever will. We just want to get people in the trade, people who have interest in the industry, people who have interest in the aftermarket. So if you know anybody and you think that what we're doing is reasonably good, please, 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 if you could just pass it on to them, please like, comment and share it with them. It'd be a big help to us, and thanks for that, and see you next week.